Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. My partner Kristen Oaks-White will be joining us a little later in the show from her garden. There are fewer young people becoming teachers in Louisiana. That's according to the State Department of Education. The data show that since 2010, the number of students finishing teacher preparation programs dropped by 18%. That's why when there is a really good teacher, especially one who works agriculture into the lessons, you have to recognize them. In that spirit, the Louisiana Farm Bureau Ag in the Classroom Committee chose Lafayette Parish teacher Paula Guidry as the 2018 Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year.
Landon, look. Oh yeah, I already got it.
The hunt is on for bugs in the garden at L. Leo Judice Elementary School in Scott.
We're looking for the cucumber beetle.
These fifth graders learn to tell the good guys from the bad in this outdoor classroom.
Today you're going to research a pest and you're going to make a wanted poster.
Paula Guidry is their teacher. She's been using agriculture to teach students the basics of reading, writing, math, science, and social studies for most of her career.
It's amazing the kids who don't excel in the classroom. A lot of times you bring them out here and you see them excel.
Whoa! Show Miss Guidry. Miss Guidry. Oh my God.
Guidry says she plowed ahead with using agriculture in her lesson plans after receiving a grant from the LSU Ag Center to plant gardens like this one all around the school.
It definitely made it more engaging for the kids because they can actually see where their food comes from and they can actually hands-on get involved, get outside, and it connects to what they're doing in class. We can read about those things instead of reading about something that doesn't really matter to them.
Paula Guidry is outstanding. She is the teacher that you would want your personal child to have for any subject area.
Mia Lemaire is the principal at L. Leo Judice. She says Guidry works with all of the teachers in the school to incorporate the gardens into lessons.
Our theme here is environmental science, and so with that, we do grade level gardens. Paula is the director of our program for environmental sciences, and in fact she was named the School of Choice Director of the Year. She's received that title as well.
And now Guidry has another title, 2018 Louisiana Farm Bureau Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year.
Well, I was sort of shocked, I guess, was the first the first response, because we basically feel we're a team here, and so we all work together to make this program work. And you know, I know there's some fantastic things going on in the state and with teachers just in our own parish here and throughout the state. So it was sort of shock and excitement too at the same time.
The excitement you see from these students digging potatoes out of the ground is one of the reasons the Ag in the Classroom Committee chose Guidry, according to State AITC Coordinator Linda Danos.
Education has evolved, and that's what we need to be doing more of, getting students out and doing things, getting their hands dirty, digging potatoes, experiencing life.
A few of the perks that go with the title of 2018 Louisiana Farm Bureau Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year include a shiny new iPad. Unlike this one, Guidry will enjoy that. She'll also join the Louisiana Farm Bureau for its 96th annual meeting in New Orleans, June 21st through the 24th, and immediately after that, she'll travel to the National Ag in the Classroom Conference in Portland, Maine. We often tell you stories of farmers who were raised on the farm, many of whom can trace agriculture in their family, well, as far back as records allow. There are others who are just beginning that legacy on the farm and planting new traditions for the future generations. This week, TWILA's Carl Wiggers introduces us to a Northeast Louisiana man who blends those two narratives into his very own Louisiana farm life.
Riding through the rolling bluffs that surround his farm, Butch Oaks is right at home. For 28 years, he has grown poultry and Angus cattle on his ranch in Ouachita Parish. But unlike many of Louisiana's multi-generation farmers, Butch says that his path to agriculture was just a little bit different.
I'm what you'd call a skip-a-generation farmer. My grandparents in Oklahoma had a wheat farm. My grandparents in Louisiana at one time actually grew cotton on the hills where we are now. As a child, if you wanted to make a little spending money, I could get on my bicycle and ride to any of about 25 dairies in this area, all of them raising 25 to 40 cows and milking. And almost all of those farms also had one 5,000 head chicken house on them.
Those farms are where Butch learned to work hard, but it was his grandmother who led him to what would become his lifelong passion.
I had a desire to show cows, and my grandmother bought me my first Angus heifer. I just fell in love with them.
This was the start of his love for Angus cattle, a love that even a career as an electrical contractor could not shake.
That came easy to me. My dad was a radio technician, and I just grew up around that thought process.
While Butch was successful in that career, he yearned to come back to what he loved during his childhood.
One day I just wanted to come back to raising cattle. And the only way I felt I could afford it was to build some chicken houses that would guarantee me an income and allow me to raise cattle the way I wanted and the kind of cattle I wanted.
Which was naturally?
Which was Angus.
These poultry houses he built look a lot different than the ones that he worked in as a child.
Those chickens were fed by hand, they were watered by hand. Those dairy cows' feed was mixed by hand and carried in buckets and dumped over in a trough.
From 5-gallon buckets to 20,000-pound bins, today his chicken farms run on a totally different scale. Inside these 6 houses, Butch raises more than 125,000 chickens every 6 weeks. Multiply that by 6.5 flocks a year, and that's a whole lot of chicken. Managing that wouldn't be possible without embracing the technology available to him today.
We have computers running the environment in our poultry houses. We have automatic feeders. We have automatic waterers.
His chicken houses even call him sometime when something needs attention. Literally, a chicken house calls him.
Communicator active. Alarm, please press 1 to listen.
This technology is one way that Butch is finding new solutions for old problems. Returning to the farm also gave Butch the chance to revisit his days in the show ring, where he found a new way to share his old love of cattle.
My love of cattle, especially show cattle, was fed by my grandmother buying me that first heifer. My youngest daughter came along, and she would look at pictures in my grandmother's house of me showing cattle. All of a sudden one day she says to me, I want to show cows.
Butch said it was his job to put Kristen in the ring with the very best calves that he could. Then it was up to Kristen to show them well, and they both held up their end of the bargain. From Denver to Baltimore, they traveled the country showing cattle and brought home many champion banners. Many, many champion banners.
Well, here was LSU Grand Champion Bull. We won this 5 years in a row.
Win or lose, Butch said it was in those arenas where Kristen learned valuable skills that outlive her days showing cattle.
They will take that and become a more productive person. And I feel like if there wasn't anything accomplished with my daughter, that was one of the most important things. And the fact that she didn't leave agriculture. She stayed in agriculture and is still in agriculture today.
There's one more way that Butch Oakes has brought something from the past up to the present, and it doesn't really involve the farm that much, but it's super interesting to me. Butch Oakes loves to work on his hot rods that fill his garage, and we talked a lot about those because they are awesome. I've got some of that part of the story on our Facebook page as a TWILA Extra, and you can go and find that on our website at twilatv.org. And Avery, I've got to say, you know, we hear from Kristen all the time anytime there's a cattle story, a beef story, a dairy story, any kind of a story that involves a 4-legged large cow.
Something of the bovine.
Anything in the bovine world,
Yeah.
her love for the Angus. And she gets it honest, I'll say that. Butch loves his Angus breed. From whenever he was 9 and he got his first, all the way until today. He just being out there with him amongst his Angus herd is, I mean, he's just a kid in a candy shop with those Angus bulls, and his bulls are his babies.
Well, you definitely see where Kristen gets her love for agriculture from her dad, from the family. But I almost wish that she were here instead of over in her garden. However, when we started planning to do this story, It was supposed to be a surprise for Kristen.
It was.
She wasn't supposed to know a thing about it, and then we were going to spring it on her on set.
Yeah, that doesn't really work very well. 'Cause as you can probably guess by the relationship from the story, they're pretty tight. They have a pretty special bond through their love of the Angus cattle, but their showing days as well. They spent a lot of hours together, the two of them, and that was pretty neat to hear those stories from Butch about, raising Kristen in the show barn.
And I want to give one other little TWILA extra, and that is when Carl called Butch to set up the story. I think you left a message, and then he immediately texted Kristen. Is that how it worked?
I called Butch. Apparently, Butch called Kristen. Kristen called me to set it up. That's kind of the way things work there. Butch called a PR person to work with this PR person.
Well, that's the way it works sometimes. Thank you very much, Carl Wiggers. The 2018 regular session of the Louisiana legislature should come to a close by the end of this week, and I say should because as we record this, lawmakers are still at the state capitol, and Governor John Bel Edwards has called for a special session to begin on Tuesday, May 22nd, which means that the Friday after we record this, they would have to adjourn sine die, and we'll see if legislators cooperate. The number one issue in Baton Rouge, the budget. That's why the Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee paid a visit to the state capitol to meet with their legislators. They got to sit in on a House Ag Committee hearing for a Senate dairy bill to help stop the loss of dairies in Louisiana. Women's Leadership Committee Chair Denise Canatella says as members of the committee are often making financial decisions for their farms, it's important to see how this process can affect them.
This way we get to speak to our legislators one-on-one and let them know which issues are important to us and why we would like them to consider maybe speaking to us before they make a vote if they have any questions in their mind.
The day after Canatella and her committee went to the state capitol, the governor met with the Louisiana Farm Bureau's young farmers and ranchers who went to the capitol as well. Louisiana Farm Bureau President Ronnie Anderson says it's a learning opportunity for these farmers, ranchers, and legislators who are getting to see the next generation of ag leaders.
It's interesting for them to be able to see how bills are introduced, how they work their way through committee, and how they make it to the floor of the House or the Senate. And I think it gives them a better understanding of how difficult it is at times to either pass or kill a piece of legislation. And I think with them coming down here, it exposes more of our up-and-coming leaders to how they're going to have to work in the future when dealing with the legislature.
We mentioned that the budget is the big issue. For the LSU Ag Center, the budget passed by the House includes $10 million in cuts. That's on top of $20 million in cuts over the last 10 years. LSU Vice President for Agriculture, Dr. Bill Richardson, tells the Delta Farm Press these cuts would have a widespread negative impact on research and extension programs across the state. Still to come on TWILA, a special treat for mothers in this week's TWILA Boost. But first, Kristen Oakes-White will bring us an all-new Blooming on the Bayou right after the break. It's not even summertime yet, and it's already hot in Louisiana. I mean really scorching hot. According to the National Weather Service, May 2018 has seen one of the warmest starts to the month on record in the state. The good news is, all of this heat is actually boosting the growth of your landscaping and your vegetable garden, but it's also boosting the bugs. Insects are cold-blooded, so an increase in temperature usually means a big increase in insect activity. In this month's installment of Blooming on the Bayou, TWILA's Kristen Oakes-White shares some proactive tips and tricks to keep those pesky garden pests at bay this season.
Y'all, welcome back to Blooming on the Bayou, and we're back here in my home vegetable garden to see how things are growing since we planted them in our first segment. And it's been about a month since we planted our starter crops for the summer garden, and as you can see, we've had some great progress so far. The tomatoes have come a long way, and the squash are growing more each day, but we had a tough start and a few setbacks to the season so far. After Easter, we had a few nights of really cold, chilly weather where the temperatures got down in the 30s. I lost a few of my squash plants and I lost all of my cucumber plants, which I had to replant. So in addition to all of the challenges that I've faced from the weather this season, I've been battling a plethora of critters and pests early on in the season. Now, a few weeks ago, after we planted this entire crop, A chipmunk ate every single one of my pepper plants down to a 1-inch stem. So between those hungry critters and all of these annoying gnats which seem to be invading my backyard this time of year, today we're going to talk about the best ways for every gardener to tackle all of these pests, which can cause problems later on in the season. Now, even in the most well-prepared and best managed vegetable gardens, certain pests will occasionally get out of hand, especially here in the South, where our warm, humid climate provides the optimal environment for a host of garden problems. Now, good vegetable garden pest control starts with basic common sense gardening, such as choosing varieties that are resistant to pests and suitable for your area and region. Now, the first step in a healthy, pest-free vegetable garden is using mulch. And for me, using mulch in the vegetable garden has always been a no-brainer. Mulch helps to suppress weeds, it retains moisture, and it helps to eliminate erosion from wind and rain. Additionally, as organic mulch decays, it provides helpful nutrients to the soil and improves the overall health of your plants. Now, organic mulches are actually better for repelling bugs. As organic mulch breaks down, they improve the chemistry of the soil by increasing the number of helpful bacteria, fungus, and insects. Helpful insects keep populations of harmful plant-destroying insects at bay. Now, let me start with a disclaimer. I have never considered myself to be an organic vegetable gardener. I've never been opposed to using pesticides or fungicides in a safe manner that will ensure you can produce a healthy, pest and disease-free plant. However, in my personal experience and many lessons in trial and error, I have discovered that an ounce of prevention is truly worth a pound of cure in the vegetable garden. But using pesticides as a method of prevention can often backfire in the long run. While some insects are destructive, many are perfectly harmless, and they can actually benefit in the garden when it comes to pollination and preventing other insects from invading your plants. In our first segment, we briefly talked about using companion planting in the garden. But one of the most compelling reasons to use companion plants is the ability of certain plants to attract beneficial insects which feed on common garden pests like aphids or caterpillars. Now, these beneficial insects are considered the good guys, which is why gardeners are cautioned about spraying pesticides at random. And later on, we'll introduce you to a few of those good guys, or good ladies, so to speak. But first, we want to talk about some of the best companion plants that you can use in your garden. Now, as you can see, my favorite companion plant to use in the vegetable garden is the marigold flower. And that's because they're pretty good companions to just about every vegetable crop. The scent from various types of marigolds can repel aphids, bean beetles, potato bugs, squash bugs, nematodes, and even maggots. In this section of my garden, I always try to plant a lot of herbs that I can use when cooking. Basil, oregano, mint. They're also great companion plants when it comes to deterring pests. Now, another companion plant, which some people say is the poster child for all companion plants, is the nasturtium. Nasturtium? Nasturtium. The nasturtium plant. They release an airborne chemical that repels most bad insects. Because many of the insects nasturtiums repel favor vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, kale, collards, broccoli, cabbage, nasturtiums are an ideal choice for planting along the edges of vegetable gardens. We've shown you several ways to keep pests out of your garden, but what if you've already got a bug problem? When we come back, we'll introduce you to those good gals which can help you win the battle of the bugs. Stay with us. Before we went to break, we talked about all the different companion plants that can help attract beneficial insects to your garden. And one of the best beneficial insects is the ladybug, and it's a gardener's best friend. Did you know that ladybugs are capable of consuming up to 60 aphids per day? And they'll also eat a variety of other insects and larvae, including scales, mealybugs, leafhoppers, mites, and various types of soft-bodied insects. Now, you can attract ladybugs with certain plants, but you can also purchase your own army of these little gals online. In case you ever wondered, this is what 1,500 ladybugs looks like. And for just $5, you can get your own set of these from Amazon, and we posted a link on our website where you can buy them and have them shipped directly to your doorstep. Once they arrive at your doorstep, the first thing you need to do is store them in the refrigerator. And this is a technique that mimics their inactive winter state, so allowing them time to adjust slowly is important. Once you're ready to release them, choose a time close to dusk or dawn during the coolest part of the day. It's important to provide them with moist conditions. A light watering just ahead of release is a great idea. If they arrive to dry conditions, they'll probably leave in search of water right away. Now it's time for the fun part, letting them go. So we're going to cut the bag open. There's no turning back now. And I'm trying not to cut any of the bugs. Oh, and see, they're already crawling out. Now when you release them, gently scatter or spread them out so each ladybug can find food immediately. Now one way to ensure that your ladybugs will have plenty to eat whether you have a bug infestation or not is to mix up some sugar water and spray on the plants, just to give them a little boost of energy. Oh my gosh, they're crawling up my pants leg. They're crawling up my pants leg. They're in my pants. They're in my shoe. Oh my gosh, get them off, get them off, get them off, get them off, get them off. See, how much fun are these? I mean, how many times do you get to play with 1,500 ladybugs all at once? And maybe, just maybe, these will eat some of the gnats out here. I can't guarantee that any of these tips are gonna help you keep your garden 100% pest-free, but I hope they do help somewhat. If you have some tips that have worked for you in the past, or you have a question that you would like for us to help you get an answer to, you can submit them on social media with the hashtag BayouBlooms or shoot me an email. Until then, we'll see you next time on Bloomin' on the Bayou.
Kristen always has the best tricks for the garden. And by the way, just so you know, the aphids you saw in that story, not from Kristen's garden. She keeps them out. Those were from my hibiscus plant at my house. And just so you know that there is some kind of trade for ladybugs, it's kind of like a commodity, supply and demand increases the price. Well, Kristen sent me the receipt when she bought her ladybugs, $5. When I went to buy them from Amazon, $25. So apparently there's a big demand for ladybugs right now. Let's finish off our show with a little boost this week for all the moms out there. Mother's Day brought a slew of tributes to all the great moms who go above and beyond each day. Our social media feeds were buzzing with pictures and heartfelt messages. Joining us now is TWILA turned Allie Doise, making her TWILA debut, working with us for what, 3 years roughly? And this is your first time actually being on the show. And also after reigning in 2014 as the Louisiana Farm Bureau Queen. With that, for this TWILA boost, take it away, Your Highness.
Well, this week's TWILA boost comes from our friends at Kentucky Farm Bureau. They made this video as a part of their Lead Where You Stand campaign and posted it to their Facebook in honor of Mother's Day. The video compares the tough duties and responsibilities farmers face to those which mothers face raising kids.
That requires a heart of servitude and gratefulness.
To watch the entire video, head over to our website, twilatv.org, where we posted a link for you. And Avery, this was really fun for me to watch because my dad's a farmer, and really, I guess, I never realized till watching this video how much my mom's role taking care of us while my dad was in the farm related to his job on the farm.
It's amazing what mothers do, no matter what the dad's job is. In my case, my wife works. She does sort of the same sort of job I do, doing public relations and that sort of thing. But then I think back to my mom. My father worked offshore and would be out for 2 weeks at a time. Your dad during harvest.
Yeah. It's just, sometimes she's a one-man show, and not that he's not around. He is around and helps us, but sometimes it's just crazy, and she works too. She's a school teacher, so she's doing double duty, and I guess this was just a really good way to show how those two correlate.
Well, we'll give the dads their due on Father's Day. Thank you very much, Allie Doise. That does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll brew up a great story about a Baton Rouge coffee roaster who is making the single barrel whiskey of coffee. And I've heard it tastes good with whiskey in it. I haven't tried it myself yet. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.